This is Coda Radio, episode 184 for December 21st, 2015. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and we have something special in store for you this week. Unlike previous years, we thought, let's put together a little project, something special for the audience. So this year, we're doing a retrospective on some of the major topics that we discussed. And then when we come back on the 28th with a live show, we're going to do a little bit of a retrospective on those topics. So this is sort of like your homework episode, so you can kind of be up to date on them with us and kind of re-listen to some of them if you've listened to them all year. And if you haven't had a chance to hear all of the episodes, some of those will be covered here. We'll also be covering additional stuff and other things we sort of want to color in on the episode coming up. But we thought this would be a great way to sort of prep you for it. So I have selected a bunch of different clips throughout the year, just the year of 2015, from the Coda Radio program that I thought would be great to revisit. So either we can A, talk about them later, or B, give you a little bit of information about them next week to kind of, see where things are at and what our opinions are of those topics now since these episodes originally aired. The discussion of how much developers are earning and actually making took an interesting twist and turn this year. In episode 137 of the Coda Radio program, we actually got real numbers on how much developers are actually making.
Well, we should probably start with the Monument Valley.
Yeah, I know.
It's got a graph and a color chart.
You're right. But I just loved what he had to say. I thought it was so funny because it really does feel like you're getting a peek into, I want to see my underwear drawer is what he said. Yeah, there you go. Because that's what we're doing. Monument Valley, massively successful game. I mean, have you played it? It's great.
I actually do like it. It's funny because I didn't think I'd like it, but
it's fun. It's relaxing. Yeah, and they did something that most people don't do. They actually said how much money they've made and things like that.
It's a little trippy though, right? Like it's a little,
What, the game? A little zenny? A little,
Let's just say I imagine it does very well in Colorado and Washington State.
Maybe so. It's very peaceful. Is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a sit back and just sort of zen out and play.
So let me break this down for you. So they have this beautiful chart, which I think is in the chat room somewhere, it says Monument Valley in numbers, right? So they've had lots of sales. It's too much, really. I kid. And they break it down by platform and by distribution platform. Mm-hmm. So who's the top dog, Chris? Come on. 81.7%. Who's there?
iOS.
Every time.
Yeah.
Who's in second with a depressing 13.9%?
Google Play.
And who is, showed up to the race and fell down at the starting line?
Amazon.
Now, what's really interesting about that Amazon figure, though, they sold, as in paid, right, some amount of money over zero, 92,000 roughly licenses on Amazon, right? We'll say volume licenses, whatever, units, let's call it, right? But when it was the free app on Amazon, 407,000. That's horrible.
You know what I actually was thinking is even worse? And it's just Microsoft's just not even in the conversation.
Right. There's no winner. Well, I don't think it was ever released for anything else.
No, I know. Yeah, it's pathetic. In fact, there's another chart here. If you look at revenue over time, iOS release, it's the highest thing on the chart. Android release is lower than some of their sales or new updated content on iOS.
Individually for iOS. I mean, there is not to put on my evil businessman mustache and twirl it, there is a really sound argument if there was to be like a Monument Valley 2 to just be iOS here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because what I would love to see the counter to this chart. What percentage of your cost and your effort went into each platform and each platform? Platform as in iOS versus Android. Platform also as in vendor, right? Because remember, the Kindle is Android, but it's a little weird.
This is, so devastating.
This is crushing. They could I would love to be behind the scenes with the Monument Valley guys and just ask them after getting them drunk so they would share this. Like, honestly, V2, you're not going Android, are you? You're just not.
So, and here's the thing: is like this isn't like an arbitrary game that nobody really heard of. This game was I personally saw it very well featured in the Play Store.
Yeah, it was, and if I hadn't already bought it on iPad, oops, I might have picked it up on my Nexus 7.
Is that what it is? Do you think maybe that's what it is? Is that it was out 6 months?
I don't think that's it. I think because most people, most non-super nerdy dev people, aren't going to have 2 tablets and
I agree.
Phones, right?
I agree. I just wanted to give them an excuse.
Well, this isn't their fault. I mean, are you trying to suggest that they don't know how to market to the Android market?
No, I don't know what the excuse is, because everybody's been telling me that Android is becoming a first-rate gaming platform.
You know, I'm going to quote one of my past clients here. But Mike, Android is for poor people. Just get it to run.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Literally, I shit you not.
Really?
Yep. The bar for Android was get it to run. Hi, Bailey. My dog is an Android fan. He's very upset. He walked out of the room now.
Well, and that is, I think that may be true for a certain range of the market that, can only afford, that are not going to go buy a high-end phone that has a decent GPU. It just seems like what it doesn't correlate is the numbers, the distribution. It would seem like that would make it up. I look at this and I think to myself, will it be like this? So will it be like this in 2016? Because I feel like we've been talking about this since basically this has been a popular comparison since really Google named it the Play Store. Remember when they kind of went from the Android marketplace to the Google Play Store, and then we really started making more of these comparisons because the Play Store, obviously they're you're selling games, it's to have fun. Now we're at the end of this is from the end of 2014. It doesn't seem like Google successfully, from this one case, moved the needle for developers over 2014.
Okay, but so it's not this one case is the problem, though, right? I mean, Monument Valley people have been very open and really put a lot of effort into these nice-looking charts. But this is kind of the anecdotal story we see all the time, right? Oh, we didn't make any money on the Android version, so V2 is going to be iOS. Okay, thanks, bye. Or maybe there won't be a V2, right? Now, devil's advocacy here, right? Monument Valley is a straight-up purchase. Right, you buy the app and then you buy the in-app purchase, which is an expansion, basically. Maybe that revenue model doesn't fly on Android.
Gosh, it's really damning.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the Christmas sales.
Yeah, go on.
And the Christmas sales are just tiny on Android compared to. They don't even break 20K.
That makes perfect sense, right? Because when people are getting their husbands, their wives, their family gifts, and they want to get them a tablet. Guess what? They're getting them an iPad.
I don't know. I mean, maybe people buy they don't want to spend a lot of money on their some or others. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at this. So on iOS, they breached almost 85K. It looks like.
Yeah.
And they didn't even crack 20K on Android Christmas Day.
For Christmas only, they made a lot more money than 85K. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's damning because that especially for a game, that's going to be. That's going to be kind of it. What's also interesting is if you take a look at the bottom of the page, they have these awards that Apple gives, Design Awards and iPad Game of the Year. Google doesn't currently, to my knowledge, do anything like that.
I think that helps. I guess it does, doesn't it?
I think anything that you can put on your site and in your marketing materials that shows recognition to stand out from the other millions of apps is super helpful.
8 core team members based in London.
Yep.
Original, $852,000. Forgotten Shores, $550,000. The first one was in 55 weeks, second one was in 29 weeks. 8 people. Gosh, when it works, doesn't it?
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's fine, right? No one's going to cry about that.
April 3rd, 2014 launch day, they made $145,000 in one day. All right, so there's that's Monument Valley. It's a game everybody's heard of. Should we talk about Overcast?
Let's talk about Overcast, yeah.
So you might remember here on the show, Mike and I both reviewed Overcast. It's I think, is this still your preferred podcast player?
Yeah, it's my daily driver.
Yeah, it is. It is my preferred podcast player too, and it's even gotten better since we've talked about it. To Marco's credit, he's continued to make a really good product. It's gotten iPad support now, which is nice, and a few other things. So he has posted his sales numbers for Overcast, which launched on July 16th, 2014. He worked on it for full time for 15 months. He did it as a free download, and then it has a unlock everything upgrade tier in the app. So it's a free app with a $5 in-app purchase. It gives you things like cellular downloads and stuff like that. As he puts it, he had a perfect launch. So as good as he says as an indie developer could possibly hope for, with tons of great press, mid-level App Store features, and thousands of tweets on each day. So for calendar year 2014, 318,966 total downloads, 46,000, I'll just say 47,000 in-app purchases. So he has an in-app purchase rate of 14.7% of the people that download his app. So it's about 15% of the people that download his app unlock it with the $5 unlock. Total revenue after Apple's 30% cut is $164,000. $164,000. That's not bad. That's before any taxes, though. But that's after Apple's cut. $85,000 earned in the first month of sales alone for Overcast. $85,000 in the first month. Per month, excluding the launch month, since that was the outlier, 27,000, about 30,000, about 28,000 around that range, average monthly downloads. 4,600 average monthly in-app purchases, so he's actually got a higher rate than before. He's got a 16.3% in-app purchase rate. And he's making about $15,000 a month selling Overcast, which he calls a sustainable business now.
Yeah.
$15,000 a month surely is. And what's interesting is now he has a bit of a Christmas bump in here, but you can see he actually posted, I think, the charts right from the developer dashboard. And you can see it almost got up to $100,000 on launch. It settled around in October, but since October, his sales have actually been climbing again. And including in-app purchase as well. So it depends. It seems like if you nail it on the App Store, you can make yourself quite a good daily living off of it from these. Did anything about these numbers surprise you?
The 14.7% conversion rate, I actually was surprised at.
And it's actually now holding at 16.3% conversion rate. Yeah, I was surprised by that too. So you figure 27,000, about 28,000 monthly downloads, and about 4,500 of that 28,000 buy it.
Right.
So you can get an idea of the kind of scale your app has to have in order to make money. And that's assuming you have a compelling reason for people to pay. Now, in episode 156, we had our post-Google I.O. discussion. And unlike years past, there was a bit of an elephant in the room on this one. I don't know if you guys remember this, but in 156, there was no doubt about it. This was Mike's victory lap. Maybe not. And there's also some interesting apps, third-party apps for Wear that are much better than what's available on Apple Watch. Like there's something called a Gold Swing Analyzer. And it's a golf swing analyzer. And it uses the Wear sensor data in your watch.
Wait, what?
What?
Is that real?
Yeah, dude. It uses the sensors in the watch, and it analyzes your golf swing and feeds it back to the app, and then teaches you how to golf better.
Crap.
What? Why? What's wrong?
Nothing. Let's just. Yeah. Great. Okay. Happy to see that.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty of other opportunities on the market for that. But it was demoed in the keynote. The guys seem super stoked. Okay. They say they have 4,000 apps for Android Wear. Only about a dozen of them are any good, though, in my opinion.
Well, we just saw the live execution of a project.
Really?
Yes, we did.
No, I mean...
I missed that part of the keynote. Oh, boy.
You're kidding me. You should go...
I'm serious.
All right,
that literally is what I was doing.
Golf Swing Analyzer. That's what it's called, I think, is Golf Swing Analyzer.
Chance that it's like Larry's little cousin and it sucks.
Yeah, well, it did look particularly ugly, if I recall. So
this is not I'm buying an Android powered smart home. This is I'm buying a Chris's IoT company smart home. This is an opportunity for hopefully small businesses, but more likely evil conglomerates, to totally pretend like Android Brillo doesn't exist, make their own system, and you're absolutely right, it will not be interop, but they will sell you the whole system.
Right, and they will leverage Brillo and Weave to create
and
their
they'll have
product.
their own platform.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're saying I'm not going to be buying something from Hughes and something from GE and something from Whirlpool and something Kirkland brand and have them all work together.
Now, what will probably happen is if you just let's look at the computing market in the 80s, right? There's going to be smaller companies who are more aggressive and do decide to be compatible simply because they can't scale.
That's
to do
their
the whole
edge.
system.
That's their marketing.
That's their edge.
Yeah.
And they'll be a little cheaper, right? And that is, to me, incredibly exciting. But I've been waiting to have, you know what, I'll use a Star Trek reference for you because I know you love it. When I'm about to die in my spaceship, I want to be able to tell the ship to make me a gin and tonic.
Yeah, I'm with you. I honestly have been even tempted by Amazon Echo a little bit for that. You know, just be
what
here
is
in the
it,
studio.
Alexa?
Yeah.
Hey, Alexa, fix me a gin and tonic.
Yeah. Alexa, play Coda Radio.
Although I kind of want it to be sassy. Like, I like how Siri's kind of like, don't talk to me like that.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah. Does Google tell you jokes?
I haven't.
Because Siri will do that, right? You can. So let's see. Okay, Google. Tell me a joke. Nothing, man. Nothing.
Really, sometimes I remember when I first got a Siri phone, because my mother was very interested in it. I put it out on the table, turned on Siri, and just started hitting on Siri.
Yeah.
And she thought it was hilarious how Siri was shutting me down.
Yeah. Google's all about the business. It don't have time for joking around.
Although Cortana's good too. See, that may be the problem though, right? You're part of this whole smart, because I refuse to say Internet of Things, this smart revolution. I really think you need voice control, and I think Apple has the tone the most right in terms of how it should operate, but they're the most limited.
Mm-hmm.
I think Google does the most stuff, but it's kind of boring.
Aren't we just days? Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
We're days away from Cortana being cross-platform, if that's what you're thinking.
Yep. Yeah, they just announced it for
Cortana,
Android and for iOS.
Cortana may be the middle ground, but I don't see a lot of these types of companies that I'm envisioning signing a contract with Microsoft. And I don't see Microsoft wanting to sign that contract, right?
Yeah.
Because no disrespect, not dismissing Microsoft in this arena, but I don't see a lot of Windows 10 smart devices.
Before we get into the rest of the show, I would like to thank our friends over at Linux Academy who have been amazing sponsors of the Coda Radio program the entire year. And if you haven't yet taken the chance to check them out, I invite you to go to linuxacademy.com/coders. You'll get our special discount, and then also, you support the show. Let them know you heard about it here. But the reason why I think Linux Academy has been such a great fit for the Coda Radio program is they've really nailed that whole DevOps area where you just kind of get in a little bit and you realize there's a lot to learn here. And they've really nailed that approach. Also, the entire AWS platform. There's not a better way to learn it. Hands-on, real lab experience, self-paced courses with videos and downloadable comprehensive study guides. Instructor help is available when you need it. It is a really good platform for learning. And one of the things that I like is there's been big topics in my life that I haven't been able to wrap my head around until I came to Linux Academy. And they break it down in such a way that actually makes it seem like a tackable thing that I could actually go out and learn. It is a really encouraging thing to be able to see something like Ruby or Python broken down into a matter of hours. It's empowering. And Linux Academy is constantly expanding and improving. Throughout the year, they have added so many great features. I have a stack of things I have printed off that they have done, and it is really impressive. In October, they launched a whole new upgrade to their infrastructure. They launched a new learning tool that is really nice. It does real-time evaluations of how you are performing on the server when you're building something or setting something up, which is a very handy learning tool. They've expanded their instructor help. They've expanded their courseware. Their community has grown like crazy. It has been a great year for Linux Academy, and it could be, the perfect time for you to get in there and start learning. So go to linuxacademy.com/coders and check them out. I think it's a great experience for you. Check out their new graded server exercises, their updated Nugget courses, which are great for deep dives when you have 2 or 60 minutes. You want to get in there and learn something. It's a great way to go. It's a really great platform covering the best technologies by people that are extremely passionate about those technologies, and that makes the difference. Go to linuxacademy.com/coders to get our discount and support this show. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coda Radio program. Moving on, we have a couple other topics that fit in really well here, actually. So the chat room and I were just chatting in between the clips about Mike's big switch to Ionic this year. It was a slow, interesting migration that he made that sort of worked its way into the show, and I did a little digging around, and I think the first spotting was in episode 164.
But there's Ember, there's Backbone, there's all these other things, and it's not really... I know all you open source people are going to attack me now, but progress would be made a little better if we were all going in the same direction, which is, of course, Angular, by the way. It's trolling on. I'll give you a great example, and this was going to be the topic for today, but I didn't put it in the notes. The Ionic framework, Chris can just throw it on the chat room. What Ionic is, it's an AngularJS HTML5 platform for developing mobile apps, right? This whole thing is basically, it's got some tie-ins to do some nice, fast animations, just like every other web mobile platform does, right? So the animations don't look like garbage. But it's based on AngularJS, and it brings you some of that data binding magic. I can get a quick user feed done on this, probably 2 hours. Fully done. UI, everything.
This looks really nice.
The whole bit.
I like their slogan, performance obsessed.
Right, but development speed is amazing in this. Because they picked a lane. They said, you know what? If you're going to use this, you're using Angular, and everything is Angular. You bind everything. You write it once, you bind it. It's awesome. Now it has some problems, like all of these other cross-platform tools, right? Its biggest problem is that it's kind of not mature. I mean, it's more stable than many of its competitors. And under the hood, it's actually Cordova, so you're shipping a Cordova code base.
Okay.
There's, of course, some issues. Right now you have this big dependency on Angular. So, again, would you want to do that? However, I'm willing to gamble that if I did a native table view with images and an Ionic table view with images, put them both on the same iPhone, and asked Chris to tell me which is which, he couldn't figure it out. Scrolling.
That's nice, man. This is actually kind of exciting.
The place where this falls down is, you want some watch integration? Oh, well, sorry.
Oh, really?
Well, because it's, you got to do like a native tie-in thing. And
Go frickin' figure, right?
Things get weird. I think this is where we're going. Because in addition to this, they have prefab widgets, prefab templates that you can just come in, use them, and then skin them. Very Visual Studio stuff.
Yeah, right? That does make... I could totally see that, the way things go.
This is a mature market. I mean, if somebody comes to you and says, I want an app, okay, do you want a tab bar app? Do you want a side little hamburger button thing? Or do you just want like a nav controller app? They basically only have 3 options, right? I mean, in tablet, they have a few more, but that's... So there's no reason to constantly write that stuff from scratch.
I'm checking out... They have... so if people want to check this out, ionicframework.com, and then if you go to ionicframework.com/examples, they have code samples posted up. Yes. And they have a code pen demo, which I'm looking at right now. This is neat.
It is pretty neat.
Look at this. This is neat. Look at these guys.
Oh, what the hell are you doing?
I'm looking at their pull to refresh code right here. So
spinners.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their pull to refresh sample code right now, which is nice. I like its bounce. It's got good bounce. That's really cool. I like that they show you it right there too. You really can just jump in if you want to start conceptualizing.
Or playing with it, yeah. But this is my point, right? Not that everybody should go use Ionic. Use whatever you want to use, but we're not in the days of, getting back to a bunch of... Canonical can't ask people to go write things in Qt or Go or Q or whatever. They can't ask people... What was it, Python, right? GTK? They can't ask people to write it in Python. They can barely ask people to write it in Mono because Xamarin effectively broke that. You got to go with it. And the way it's going is the web. So if you want to support these smaller platforms, if you want to, go where the puck or skate where the puck is probably going, that's the web.
Yeah, and if you want to be fast too, which sounds like is sometimes a big component of it too, because it can also keep costs down.
Right, development speed fast. Now there's certain things that the web is totally inappropriate for on mobile, right? Like, they're media intensive things like that, you're probably still going to go native.
One of the reoccurring big topics in our audience is the struggle to stay current and all of the issues around that and sort of the shame you can sometimes fall into. And I really enjoyed our conversation in episode 165 of Coder Radio, keeping current. And you started with, does tech get too old? As in, like, is it get too old by the time you learn it? Is that what you're implying?
Well, one problem that I'm kind of overly obsessed with, I think, is general marketability, especially if you want to do contracting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh,
because
sure.
that's a lot harder than just
or get a better job, or if the current job goes bust, like you got to go somewhere. Like, how presentable are you? I think that's pretty reasonable to always be thinking about that.
So, like, one of the things I've been kind of kicking around is like, Rails does what I need it to do, and what most of the people I do work for, and all that kind of fun stuff.
And do you think it also,
like 99% of the time? But go ahead.
It's got a brand to it, right? So
it's got a brand, but it's also, and this is kind of where I'm thinking, now that it's old, it's a little commoditized, and when I say a little, I mean a lot.
I agree.
So it becomes a lot harder to fend off, not to be waving my Donald Trump American flag here, offshore competition, but it really does, right? Two, and again, this is going to sound terrible, Rails is almost too easy to pick up, right? To the point of, there are these like 3-week Rails camps, and there's literally viable competition. Now, they're not as good.
Do you think that makes you vulnerable for replacement? Is that why you say that?
I think it has. I think it has had a material effect, actually.
Oh, okay.
In that, selling, if you're going into a new either job or probably more, again, my whole experience with jobs is not exactly perfect in terms, because I haven't done that kind of thing in a very, very long time. But if you're trying to be an independent contractor, do a dev shop, whatever, you're trying to sell this. Let's say you're talking to, someone who doesn't know you from Adam, right? You're going to do this beautiful, responsive design, Ruby on Rails web application. It's going to cost them, I don't know, Chris, what sounds reasonable? Just give me a number. It doesn't really matter.
Let's say it's $12,000.
$12,000 sounds great, which actually sounds super reasonable, right, for everything, including responsive design. They're like, well, we went on Upwork, or we went on Odesk, or freelancer.com, and we could get it done for like $800. Or there's this local kid who just got out of this Ruby boot camp who will do it for $4,000. And yes, their project probably won't go well, right? And, Alex Wells in the chat, he hasn't been terribly impressed with people out of boot camps. I would imagine that that's the case. Yeah. I haven't employed or in any other way supervised one of them, but again, they must have some value.
The boot camp, well, it depends on the student. If you're somebody who just needed a little boost and a point in the right direction, great for you. Especially if you're already pretty familiar with the concepts when you get there. But there's a lot of people that don't fit that description.
Yeah, I mean, it seems rough, right? So
here's what Alex Bell is saying, and I kind of agree. Does it matter if it's how commoditized the technology is, and does it matter more about the market you're playing to? Because anything with enough momentum will eventually get commoditized, and
so that's a fair point, right? JCPenney's can sell a T-shirt for $20, but Nordstrom can sell it for $50.
Yeah,
and it can be the same T-shirt.
Yeah, basically.
So that is a fair point. I think, and that may be an issue with the way I've dealt with in the past lead generation, things like that, where I relied heavily on, because as you scale, you need more and more and more and more and more in a bigger funnel. And eventually, it's really tempting to go down market, which is definitely not a good idea. So maybe, but even if that's true, right? Even if you stay up market, there's still a lot of Rails shops. I mean, look at Dockyard, one of the biggest ones. Well, they've now totally rebranded and moved away from Rails because they couldn't close a deal at the rates they wanted. Mm-hmm. I mean, in fact, if I could dig it up, we can put it in after show. They had their Brian the Senadella. Hope I said that right. Or Brian, I apologize for butchering your name. Mm-hmm. Has a great post on their blog about it was just getting ridiculous. I mean, they charge something, I don't know their exact rates, but it's substantial, right? It's $200 plus an hour, which is very high.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Again, that's the market they're in. And they're getting killed by people at like $75 an hour or $60 an hour, which are more like individual rates. So their solution was to simply, they rebranded, they're now a Ember.js JavaScript design shop, which is a fancy way to say we sell people on how pretty things look, which is fine. Like, I think they're awesome. I'm not like beating them up or anything. But if you take that as just one case study, does that mean that, look at all the big Ruby shops, right? There was Stockyard, there was Thoughtbot. Well, Thoughtbot's more a mobile shop than anything else right now. I mean, look at their projects, listen to they do their marketing podcasts and their blog. They're really, what are they doing? They're pioneering open source Swift right now, right? With Argo and a bunch of their other JSON parsing stuff. Why? Because it's new and it's not, there's not a million other competitors there. But I'll let you jump in.
Well, what I'm see with over there's a couple of things that are particularly challenging. If this was a traditional market with a traditional commodity and good being built and assembled and shipped, it wouldn't. One thing that it wouldn't constantly suffer from as much, I would think, is everything constantly gets repackaged, recommoditized, and rebuilt into an easier turnkey solution as time goes on. And so when new things get introduced, it requires an expert and somebody who's just, really a magician to make something amazing out of it. And those people have the first to market advantage, and they often set the pace and the tone for design and ideas and concepts. And then as time goes on, like, I think back to, well, there's a couple of things. Like, not to just to bang on this one too much, but like hosting and WordPress. Like now you can deploy a WordPress blog in like a minute, and there's like a dozen different ways online to get your own website up and going. It used to require that a business owner go out, hire a web dev guy somehow, maybe through word of mouth, maybe through a business referral group or Craigslist or whatever. That seems to be the common ones in my experience. And then bring them on, be insanely dissatisfied typically with the work because neither one of them could communicate properly. Right. And then they would have this website that was not maintainable. It was some custom creation thing that would eventually fall apart. And it was on some sort of server somewhere. Now we have a turnkey push button, an entire complicated CMS, very well developed, updated constantly, is now deployed for you, and it can be done by somebody who's really has no experience with the underlying technology at all. And so that keeps happening at every level in the technology field, in every single sector. So to me, it feels like a constant rat race. It feels very stressful. And that's why, like, I think we sit here and we worry about skill rot, and we worry about, like, do I have to constantly follow the shiny, or should I do tried and true? Because there's this consistent pressure of that rides on top of us on these jobs. And even though we don't talk about it a lot, I think we feel it a lot. And what you're talking about here really makes me feel that.
Well, and not to torpedo my own argument, though, I've definitely seen in my own experience, like, once you go high enough up market, they don't care what the technology is anymore. They just want results. So then all those problems of being bid into oblivion kind of go away. But it's really hard and, more importantly, extremely expensive to be in that high market rate. I mean, your operating costs are absurd. And
it's the whole positioning of your business.
It's trade shows. I mean, a couple $1,000s a ticket per person. You got plane tickets. You got. I might take another heart attack right now thinking about it.
In episode 171, I spotted a little more Ionic talk. As I was going through these clips, I realized you can start to see something unfolding in Mike, and he's a little secretive. He kind of doesn't come right out and say what he's working on, but we start to get some hints in 171.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting change. I mean, just for the people who keep asking, I am like an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Disneyland, or Disney World, rather.
So what you're saying is if I go to Disney World, I just got to take an hour and a half, 2 hour drive to come see you.
No, I'll come visit you. We'll go drinking around the world.
Yeah, perfect. And I'm sure you'll be busy. What really happen is I'll get down there and be like, yeah, look, I really wanted to come out there, but I'm really right in the middle of this AngularJS project. I don't have time for you.
That's almost exactly what's going to happen, too. You know that.
I know it. I can feel it. I can feel it coming. It's cool.
So Angular, I have been knee deep in two things. One is Android native development, which is nothing special there. It's just, the normal. You bought a tablet in Chinatown and it doesn't work, and great. But this Angular stuff I've been trying, it speaks to me, Chris.
It speaks to you, huh?
It speaks. It's got data binding, kind of. Not quite as, super bound as XAML was, but a little more JavaScripty.
Okay. They call it, they do bill it, don't they, as the super, what do they say, the super heroic JavaScript framework or something like that?
Yeah. And to be fair, I'm actually using Angular through what's called NJ Cordova through Ionic.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of
interesting.
Three
Ionic,
levels.
Huh? Okay.
3 levels of abstraction here. I have to say, you can quote me on this, and you can send me angry hate mail. This is probably the way most apps are going to get made.
You think so?
Certainly by me. I did just like basic stuff that used to be a pain in the ass in PhoneGap, like, animated slide menus, things like that. Run great in Ionic. The Angular factory model, the Angular data binding saves you a whole lot of time. Like a ton of time. Scrolling performance is pretty decent. Obviously not as good as native. Really, it is a way to develop mobile software. And of course, because it's Angular, right? You could do desktop software that is using straight Angular. That makes a lot more sense to me, to the way I think, versus many of the alternatives.
What's the main advantage you're kind of getting? Is it a doing something that used to be sort of a tedious task and making it more of a straightforward approach? That way, it's just I can just bang this out, or
right. Well, the first advantage is, sometimes, fairly often, someone says a lot of people want PhoneGap, right? They want HTML5 for their mobile app. So you're already discarding double native as an option, right? Ionic and Angular give me a way to not ship them garbage that I really appreciate. And I mean that in a very general way of when I open the slide out menu, it doesn't, lag.
So I'm curious, I'm impressed, that you kind of jumped into it, because I think a lot of times when we've talked about these frameworks, it's kind of been like a framework du jour. It's like which one do you jump into, because there's so many different ones out there. How did you decide to land on this one? I mean, now that obviously you're into it, you can see the benefits, but what drew you initially to that?
I think there were two things, because you remember a while back I was really trying out Backbone.js.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Backbone didn't get a lot of traction. People are using it, but doesn't have the level of adoption as Angular. So there's, for lack of a better term, a marketability of Angular that Backbone may not have right now.
Sure.
The other thing was a lot, I just, even doing a project for myself, a website or a web application, not having a front-end JavaScript framework I was rewriting a lot of the same things over and over again. And in all honesty, I was basically rolling my own framework at some point.
That's what you end up doing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it just seems silly, right? People have solved all of these problems.
Right, yeah.
I really wanted to kind of get rid of jQuery where possible, which is another tidbit of mine, because jQuery performance issues, things like that. Angular made the most sense. I mean, I did, to be fair, I didn't really give Ember much of a shot.
Okay.
And I mean, the problem is we could name any noun and there's a JavaScript framework.
Is that a watch buzz? Is that specifically?
That is my phone.
I was gonna say it sounds like a loose motor, Mr. Dominic. It's a loose motor on that thing. You need a good tight. Motor. Let me tell you about the haptic feedback or whatever. Haptic feedback. That's what it's called. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Actually, your phone interrupted. Do you have the Moto 360 still by the way too?
I do. Yes, of course. I don't have the charging station.
Yeah, that is always the thing, isn't it? Isn't that? So, what can I interrupt and ask you just conceptually, what's the process of getting up and running with this like? What did you have to set up? What did you have to install? Did you have to set up something on your server or Droplet or whatever? What was that sort of getting started process for you? Was there an easy way to jump in there? Did you have to really invest? What happened?
So with which specifically, Ionic or Angular? Let's go with Ionic.
I was thinking specifically Ionic, but whichever.
Okay, so really, I installed it through Homebrew, and that was kind of it.
Nice, really?
Yeah, I mean, it uses Homebrew npm. It's pretty easy to set up.
Huh.
I think there might have been 3 or 4 terminal commands I ran, maybe.
Yeah, I was just looking on their GitHub page here.
To be fair, you have to have the iOS and the Android SDKs configured, which is a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Especially for iOS.
Well,
so,
yeah.
assuming you're coming in with that done, it's only like 3 or 4 terminal commands.
That's not a bad get up and started investment time at all. So that makes it easy enough. And so it looks like it best supports iOS 7 and above and Android 4.1 and above right now on mobile.
Yeah.
So have you actually produced anything that you're actually pretty happy with, or how far along are you with this?
I'm pretty far. I would say I'm going into alpha on a few things. So it's one of those things where, started too many projects, haven't shipped anything yet.
Yeah, okay. So if people want to find out more, what would you recommend they do? Or do you have any more you wanted to add to it?
Well, I would add the one thing, right? Like, go into... At some point with all this JavaScript crap, it makes sense just to pick something and do it. Because every week there's Meteor.j, right? There's going to be there's a new framework every week.
And there's tried and trues like React. Come on, what about React? Come on.
Oh, I hate React. I hate Reactive Cocoa too. Don't even start me on that crap. Oh, God. Let's take an object-oriented system, try to force it to be functional, and watch when it's weird. Ooh, hatred. Yeah, I mean, I would say give it a shot. Obviously, Angular may not be for you. I know a lot of people who swear by Ember.
And it's genuinely good across iOS and Android and on the web. Like, it's genuinely making something good.
Is.
Yeah, it's genuinely making something good.
Yeah, keep in mind, right? Ionic only does mobile. So Ionic uses Angular.
Okay.
Right, so there's two different conversations happening.
Oh, okay. But they are good. The apps it is making are good. They look native. They function well.
Yeah, I think they function fine. They look pretty native. So it's... I haven't been able to... If I didn't know, I don't think I could tell.
A lot of life events were captured this year in different forms throughout the show, and hearing Mike talk about that really kind of makes me think about that. Something that's made a big impact on me this year, seriously, is our sponsor, DigitalOcean. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code CODERDIGITAL and try out some projects over there. DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider you can get started with right away with a $10 credit if you use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. Get a $10 promo and just go try building a rig. It is such a fun experience. If you have very low, like little experience to very high, lots of experience, high-end experience, you worked with big rigs, trust me, there is something at DigitalOcean for everybody. If you want to just deploy a project or use it for your entire infrastructure, you can do that. You can get started in less than 55 seconds. And pricing plans? $5 a month. $5 a month for 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. And use that promo code, and you get a $10 credit. They got a $5 rig, you guys. $5 for one of their rigs. And you can step it up and get a more powerful machine. And that interface is so nice. And they have a great API that lets you replicate the functionality of the interface, like one-click deployment of applications and deleting machines, transferring machines, pausing machines, backing them up, rebooting them, all these kinds of things that you could just automate or take advantage of code that's already written. Use our promo code CODERDIGITAL and get that discount. DigitalOcean's been with us for more than a year, and it's because they're a perfect fit for our audience, too. We've really worked hard to work with our sponsors that we think, shoot, just about everybody listening to this show could find something to do with one of these sponsors, and DigitalOcean nails that. It is such a great resource for learning, for building, for deploying, for anything like that. And honestly, if I was back in contracting still, this would be my go-to system for building and spinning up systems and servers for people. I really like DigitalOcean. If you use that promo code, you support the show, and you get the credit. Thanks to DigitalOcean for their support of the Coder Radio program for the entire year. And thanks to you guys for using that promo code, building things. And honestly, really thank you to those of you who take the time to tell us the cool things you're building. Even if you don't think it's that cool, we still like to hear about it. You can always send it into the show, Coder Radio at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Use the promo code CODERDIGITAL, and a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Speaking of life events, Do you remember when Mike moved to Florida? I do. And it prompted this series of conversations on the show about, does your location matter when you're a developer, when you're trying to run a business, or when you're trying to get known, or trying to land clients, or just stay relevant? Does location matter? And I think initially Mike went into the discussion firmly believing that location didn't matter in the era of the internet, Skype, Google Hangouts, Twitter, email, all of that. But in 174, after some reflection and a move to Florida that didn't work out so well, I think he changed his tune.
In fact, I don't think there will be another show from me in Florida, actually.
No, really? Tell me about this.
I'm back at BTHQ full time.
That's a development. And are you so you and I are just moving around like crazy, both of us. This is really interesting.
I basically took like a 2-week vacation.
And decided that Florida wasn't working for you.
Yeah, that would be fair.
Yeah. And
I mean, there are hashtag reasons that aren't super relevant, but we could talk about them off air.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I follow you.
It's not really something that makes sense.
Yeah.
Given tech.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, it's funny. I really got a sense of that when I left Washington. I have been spoiled in the sense that I have grown up in the state that has Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing, Nintendo U.S. offices here, T-Mobile's U.S. offices are here. And so I have never really not lived in a place that wasn't like a tech central place, but because I didn't live in Silicon Valley area, California, I thought I was removed.
I kind of thought that way about like New York, New Jersey, and wow, was I wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a topic for another day, but like...
No, I mean, I think this is actually...
Yeah, maybe it's good to go into. Let's just say like mobile tech, it's like infiltrated, and even just like regular tech, right? Every business, everything or up here rather, is very... even the ones that are, they're so low tech, they're using ASP, whatever, from X years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I saw like people doing POS systems on pen and paper.
Yeah, so
I saw all kinds of crazy crap, like...
Yeah, now I'm going to just get my bias out of the way. I was going through Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, and South Dakota. So these are not known for tech central places, but I think what still struck me, what was just so striking, some of the places that we stayed at ended up not billing us by accident.
Yeah.
Now that we corrected the mistake for them, but they didn't bill us because, well, the gal was in on her regular day off and she wrote it down on the piece of paper, but the gal that was supposed to be working that day had her piece of paper with her, and since the names didn't go on that list, they didn't know we were staying at their facility using their water, power, and sewer. And then we came back in just to say, okay, we're checking out. They're like, oh, we never even had you on here. No computers, nothing. No connectivity, nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't quite that dark agey, but I did have a credit card swiped in the old carbon copy way.
Yeah. Although there were pockets of technology where I saw a fair amount of iPads in Square for people that were just like leaping up to credit cards. There was some of that, but the main issue I saw a lot is there's not very much connectivity, and for some networks there's zero coverage at all. There's like some cellular carriers I'm not very familiar with. So what I took away from that is there is a difference in the culture, and I don't mean to stereotype, but this is just sort of my first impressions, and I hope to broaden this as I take further road trips. But my first impressions were, because they are so far removed from it, there is sort of an inherent low value they assign it. Because they get along just fine without it, it's not really something that is all that necessary. And when it becomes something that's not all that necessary, you find that people are not willing to really invest in it. So an example I would see of this is, we have free Wi-Fi, and it was literally a Linksys router hanging from the ceiling at their shop. And what do you mean that's Wi-Fi? Yeah, if you just need to check your email or something, just walk over to the shack. It's fine. There's no problem with that. There's no value in they don't recognize the value in the fact that people need connectivity, sort of everywhere. We need ubiquitous connectivity now. Not in their world. That's not something you need. And so when you come at it from that standpoint, I don't think you're willing to pay contractors as much money for services rendered or developers as much money for an application created. Is that your impression?
I didn't really do any kind of business down there per se. It was just interactions with people. I will say, when I told people what I did, a lot of people showed me their new phones, and it was 2 years old. I don't know why. I mean, obviously I can read, the statistics like anybody else. Incomes are significantly lower in certain states than others. But having said that, Florida also has Miami and Orlando and Tampa, which have a ton of money. I would say, in particular, the part I was at was very rural. Not anything against it. It was nice, good food. I love grits, but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, beautiful often. Where I went was very beautiful.
Yeah, for a whole amalgamation of reasons, it was better to cut your losses than to try anything down there.
Yeah, I come back to me, and this is my first impressions, it was a cultural thing. It's not that, so you say, here's my new phone, right? Well, it's just, to them, that is a new phone, because by the cultural, to the cultural standard, it's by that cultural standard it is, and I'm not saying it's a bad cultural standard. They probably live better lives, so more power to them.
Yeah, I mean, people seem much more relaxed. I'll give them that, right? I mean, I would be careful about making any kind of statements of comparison, right? I wouldn't want to do that, but I would say that I'm just a little too up north, stressed out East Coast, probably to ever effectively adapt down there.
Now it's time to shift gears to a story I have a feeling we'll be expanding a lot more on in episode 185. Boot camps. Boot camps went big. We covered some of the stats and what we thought about it this year in episode 177. The coding boot camps are replacing computer science degrees, according to the CIO article at CIO.com. A 2015 survey from Crew's report of 67 U.S. and Canadian boot camp schools found that the average tuition per program is just over $11,000 with an average program length of about 11 weeks. Compare that with the average cost of $31,321 for 1 year at a private college, and the tech boot camp seems like a great deal. Even a year for in-state students attending public institutions can expect to pay over $9,000 per year, while out-of-state students can pay an average of $22,000 per year, actually almost $23,000 per year at public colleges. Richard Wang, the CEO of Coding Bootcamp, the Coding Dojo, says that the sticker price for higher education as it goes up, he thinks consumers are really questioning the value and return on interest of their education, and he says they should be. You see headlines around millennials having a tough time landing a job, and you start to question if it's really worth it when there are so many other options out there. And the data supports this theory. There are more and more students turning into boot camps. The course report predicts that there will be over 16,000 boot camp graduates in 2015. That's nearly 7,000 more graduates than in 2014, with revenue from the boot camp tuition rising $52 million in 2014 to $172 million in 2015. So boot camps are exploding, and it's because higher education is too expensive, and it's hard to really quantify the value for some students. Does this give you pause, or do you think this is going to work out okay? Is this the market playing things out the way it should be and letting people hyper-focus on an interest?
I think it's definitely the market at work. I don't know. The problem with talking about these boot camps is that quality varies wildly, right? I mean, really, college and a boot camp I don't think are particularly comparable, because you're not supposed to just be going to college to get a job, right?
Right, yeah.
I would see a boot camp as something you're doing it specifically to get a job.
Yeah,
So, for
point.
instance, one of the ways I might create a boot camp rather than a college would be, okay, do you have like an actual program with a large employer in your area? Because really, what are the possible effects of boot camps, right? Like someone in the chat saying it could lower the average wage of developers. True. That's certainly true, right? If it creates more developers, supply and demand. But how do I know? I mean, if you were to hire a developer, how do you, from, John's boot camp, how do you know that it's worth it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess the boot camp would have to have a certain reputation for producing a certain quality of student, which maybe only a few could achieve. So then you would essentially, those boot camps would become the more expensive boot camps, and you essentially create the same problem.
Right, you're creating the same thing. Right, you're creating right.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, there's a much more logical solution to this problem, and it's called community colleges.
What about work experience programs, too? Like,
it is... Yes, but as someone who in the past had, sought to hire lots of college grads or not college grads, those have fallen out of favor with the students themselves, many employers, the universities, by the way, and most parents. And I want to be careful of what I say here. The idea of, Dylan, in your case, going to a work experience program is not very attractive to you, just theoretically, right? As you, the parent here, you would much rather Dylan just get a solid full-time salary job.
Oh, I suppose. I mean, yeah. I meant while he was in school, instead of going into a classroom, going to...
It's super funny because a lot of schools are very picky about how they do that now.
Yeah.
They're pretty much not down with it. I mean...
What about...
I'm laughing because someone put puppy mills in the chat. About 2 years ago, or maybe 18 months, 2 years, I went to a certain for-profit university with a colleague of mine, and it was literally a puppy mill. And I'm sure you've heard of this place. They're on TV all the time. They charge more than most private schools, right? You know these places. They're universities, but they're private. Well, not private, rather. They're for-profit, right? Which is very different from being private. We interviewed, well, I don't know if I won't name the name of the school, but we were very not impressed. I'll put it to you that way. And my colleague, we're walking out, the word he said, I've never seen a software puppy mill before.
For the last clip I wanted to play in this sort of retrospective episode of the Coda Radio program, I had a lot of options to go with. In fact, this was my hardest one to pick, and I wanted to end on a note that I think represents a very important trend for our very own Mr. Dominic. It's his app, developed with the Ionic framework, being deployed to the Google Play Store. All right, Mike, are you ready to say, here it is officially, ladies and gentlemen, right here on the Google Play Store. It's called Back Points, and it's not what you expected, is it? Oh, did I say it wrong?
No, that's right.
Oh, Back Points. All right. And Mike, I got to say, I did not expect your first app to be a sports app, but damn, here it is. I'm pretty excited.
So, yes, this is a little new for me in a lot of ways. One, we're launching Android first for reasons that, I don't know, I'm using Android. Android's a little easier to get on the App Store for, no review time. And, yeah. The idea here is that, so if you're familiar with wrestling, not the crazy WWE kind of guys, but actual athletic wrestling, so think high school, college, that kind of thing, you can actually score and track your presumably child's, but you could do your own or your friends, matches and statistics during tournaments, during matches. May seem a little, let's just say, crazy soccer mommy, but actually it's kind of a big deal because like a lot of other sports wrestling, your record for the season is where you get placed in the tournaments, and in some cases, if you even qualify.
So is this built using the Ionic framework like we were talking about last week?
It is indeed.
Well, congratulations, sir. Congratulations. That's pretty cool. Very nice. Achievement unlocked. That's really nice to have it in there.
Yeah, so it's that screen you're showing right now was a huge pain.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy it's out for obvious reasons. It is a free app, by the way. Now, the deal is you get it for free. You can track one wrestler for 1 year because, again, in wrestling, seasons aren't necessarily the same for every division. So we just give you the full year. And then you can upgrade to up to 5 for $4.99 via Google Play purchase.
So you got multiple kids, or you want to track somebody else.
Multiple kids, or your group of friends, whatever.
So, what kind of? I'm curious to know about sort of the line of thinking that got you to sort of zero in on this area of the market.
So there's a couple of things at play here, right? One, I'm trying something where we're going to focus on different segments of the market to put out more products, but maybe be a little more MVP focused. Think about the difference between writing the 4,000th photo editor, right? Or writing something like this, which to my knowledge is the only thing of its kind on Google Play. And I did try to search.
I think that's actually kind of brilliant. So what you're saying is, instead of going for huge numbers, find a few niches that are worth exploring, create something that takes a certain amount of time that you can predict, and then see what happens. And maybe this is, what this is an app that acknowledges pretty much everybody's got a smartphone now. And that means there's everyday things people need to think about that they would like their smart device to make easier.
Right. I mean, just to kind of use a little jokey analogy, right? This app is designed for just regular people. This is not going to get on TechCrunch. This is not going to be talking in a white room about the fluid aluminium design, right? This is a I feel fairly well designed app for regular people who have a legitimate need. I don't know if you know this, Chris, but wrestling, particularly youth wrestling, is a huge pain to actually score. And if you're really not into sports, a lot of these are. So if you have a child that's into sports, these kind of things can be very helpful.
Yeah, no kidding. It's seriously, when my son has mentioned sports a few times, I've been like, oh boy, man, if he gets into this is just not where my head's at. Like, he's talked to me about football and baseball and things like that. And so far, nothing's really grabbed him. But if he was to get seriously involved with sports like this, I would be a little lost. I would probably actually very much like to seek out an app like this. And that brings us to the end of this retrospective edition of Coder Radio. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great holiday. Don't forget, we do the Coder Radio program live over at jblive.tv. You can find the live times at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And if you're not too busy enjoying your holidays or stuffing your face or unwrapping gifts or saying bah humbug, go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact and choose Coder Radio from the drop-down and email us directly. But please, also visit that subreddit, coderradio.reddit.com, a great place for news stories for the hoopla, projects for us to talk about, spotlight something you're working on, community interaction, feedback for the show. We'll have a thread over there for 184. All of it at coderradio.reddit.com. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of Coder Radio, and we'll see you right back here next week.